Jake Diebler heads into his first full season at Ohio State. I'm going to break down some of the offensive and defensive film concepts that I think Ohio State could go to this year. I think a common theme this year for Ohio State is going to be self-creation from their main guards, Bruce Thornton and Mei Johnson, especially Bruce Thornton. I think he's just going to have the ball in his hands even more. Very good facilitator, can score at all three levels in theory. He's going to be given the ball a lot and say, hey, go create for others. We're going to look at an example of that here. So he's going to be the one bringing the ball up. You're going to eventually get into a high pick and roll from him right here. And he just does a good job. He has pretty good shiftiness, pretty good size. And so now he's able to, once he reads, okay, defender's going to be dropping back. He reads that there's help defense here. He doesn't really have an angle for the skip. Now he's just going to cross over and get back to what he wants to do. And so he does a good job there of always just making the right play. He isn't necessarily going to force a lot. He's just going to make the play that's there. This time it's going to be driving, getting back to a strong hand, and finishing around the rim. Incoming transfer, returning to Ohio State, Mei Johnson, going to be another guy that should have the ball in his hands a good bit. Now, I expect Bruce Thornton to run more points and Mei Johnson off ball, but there's going to be times where Mei's on the floor and Bruce Thornton is not. So an example here, high pick and roll again, and Mei he's a little bit faster, I think, with the ball and getting downhill, and that's what he's going to do right here. And I think he has pretty good change of pace. Neither Thornton nor Mei were great pull-up three shooters last year. They do want to get downhill a bit more, and Mei does a good job there. And then eventually getting to the zero step, getting a floater. But I just expect both guys to really be kind of given the ball and just given space and opportunity to go try and create for themselves. Now, late newcomer Quest Glover, he didn't play to be a common theme for Ohio State. Now, Glover was, even though he's a little bit smaller, he finished really, really well around the rim last season. Or not last season, 2 seasons ago, the last season that he played. And he's quick. He's another guy that can really get downhill, get near the rim, and finish. I like the change of pace. I think he has good upside, especially kind of off the bench in the Big Ten of carving out a role. Just good body control and ability to finish near the rim. Something that's going to be really, really monitored by me is the three-point shooting, and we're going to kind of get into it in a couple different scenarios here. Keeping with the pick and roll, though, is can incoming transfer Aaron Bradshaw be a legit pick and pop threat? There was upside to it coming out of high school last season, very highly ranked recruit. Just didn't really play that well at Kentucky during his freshman season. What does year 2 look like? And so in a play like here, right, in crunch time, look at the scoring time, can he be a guy that, okay, screen, now Florida's icing, so they're going to force the ball handler to go this way. Bradshaw, in theory, has the ability to do what he does right here, and that's just kind of pop out to the top of the key, three-point line, catch and shoot. Now, I think it's a fairly smooth form, but like I said, didn't shoot well, low volume. It's going to be a big, big question mark of whether it can come through in year 2 or not, and Ohio State's going to need it. If you're enjoying, please like and subscribe. Keeping with the theme of three-point shooting, I think it's going to be the biggest question mark for Ohio State. They don't really have any elite shooters on, or proven elite shooters on this roster. They have some guys with some upside, but like last year, especially just towards the end of the season, I know this clip is going to be from earlier in the season, but Ohio State shot super well when they had the strong finish to the season. A lot of it is going to be because of this guy right here, Jamison Battle. And so what Ohio State was able to do, I mean, we'll rewind a little bit more. High pick and roll right here. Now you're going to get downhill, force the defense in rotation, and then they had guys like Roddy Gale who could attack closeouts. So now he gets downhill, defense fully collapsed, and now Jamison Battle just going to get great looks from 3, who shot an insane % last season. Incoming transfer Micah Parrish has shot the ball fairly well throughout most of college, but really struggled last season. And him being able to knock down catch and shoot looks is going to be a big kind of swing skill for Ohio State, I think, in general. So we're going to go through an example here. He's the one that kind of flew off this pin down. So high ball screen, and he's just spacing, right? It's not like these guys have to run off a ton of screens or anything like that, but just providing that spacing, his defender tagged the roll right here. And so now ball's going to get swung, and just the ability to catch. Now this time it isn't a necessarily quick catch and shoot, but he's looking for the post up, sees that he doesn't have it, and then just ability to rise up and fire. I think Ohio State just needs guys that are respected out there. We'd mentioned earlier Mei Johnson being able to play on ball, run pick and roll, create for himself, potentially others, although I think Bruce Thornton's the more natural facilitator. But what gives potential upside is that Mei Johnson's also very comfortable playing off ball. This is going to be him in the corner. He's just going to be spacing out while Talon Cooper, a true, kind of a true point guard, is able to run the show, similar to what kind of Ohio State could do this year. So Michi's in the corner. This would be like Bruce Thornton up top running pick and roll. And so now as you have a roller right here, which could be like Bradshaw, Sean Stewart, Devon Royal, you've Michi on the weak side. It puts a lot of pressure on this man right here. So this is the low man. If he comes over and tags the roll like he does here, it's going to be a skip pass. If he stays out here, then it's got to be a dump down to the roller. Skip pass right here. Mei Johnson able to catch and shoot. And he did shoot solid enough from catch and shoot threes last season. At the kind of 4 spot, the wing, power 4 spot, whatever you want to call it, Ohio State doesn't have a ton of proven shooting, really none at all. But they do have guys that have shown they could have the ability to cut off ball and just kind of work in the mid-range area, find different ways. One of them being Evan Mahaffey, who had a quietly pretty good season last year. So it's going to be him. High pick and roll for Bruce Thornton up top. This is going to get into Bruce Thornton facilitating a bit too. I mentioned the pick and roll pull-up ability earlier, but like Thornton's also going to be tasked with a ton of facilitating. And so here, it's not just like, it's nothing super crazy, but Mahaffey's going to find himself in these kind of spots a lot. 15 feet, 10 feet, catch and go up, or in the dunker spot, catch and try to go up for a layup. Here, one dribble, and then gets to a little floater, but just kind of that ability. And it, in theory, if you can't shoot well, like Mahaffey's not a respected three-point shooter, being able to do stuff like that is going to be big to just help balance the defense. Incoming transfer Sean Stewart from Duke, heck, can also kind of fit into that role of kind of dunker spot, cutter type area. This is going to be him on the weak side as this pick and roll is ran. And so he does a good job of just kind of staying in spots. I mean, this is like exactly where Mahaffey caught the ball in the previous play, getting in spots where he's comfortable. Now, oftentimes you also see him in kind of these dunker spot areas, just looking for drop-offs to be able to dunk. But he also can do this right here, station kind of 15 foot, get into it, show off a little bit of a floater, and just kind of the continued development and improvements anywhere outside of the rim for him is going to be big, whether it does come like this or even potentially further out. Freshman Devon Royal, incoming now sophomore Devon Royal, but he had a pretty good season especially at the end of the season when he really started getting consistent run for Ohio State. Similar to Mahaffey and Stewart, he's a guy that didn't shoot well from 3 last season, although he maybe has a little more upside than them. But again, kind of can hang out in the dunker spots, can cut 15 feet and in, and just find different ways to contribute that way. So again, high pick and roll for Thornton, empty-sided, nobody in this corner. Zedke's going to roll, Michigan putting 2 on the ball. And so now this puts 2-on-1 on this defender right here. Thornton does a great job of turning this corner and getting downhill. And this is where, I mean, we're going to rewind a little bit, but watch Royal right here. He's just going to put himself in the spot to be able to receive this little dump off, go up, and then just like kind of sneaky athleticism to be able to go up and dunk that. Defensively is going to be very, very interesting for Ohio State. Last year, Felix Okpara was a big part in any kind of defensive success Ohio State had. A lot of new players for Ohio State this season, and so how they kind of mesh, especially on the defensive end, is going to be interesting. I think you know what you're getting offensively, especially between Bruce Thornton and Mei Johnson, but what does the defense look like? Aaron Bradshaw is probably going to be tasked with a lot of kind of the rim protection. 7'1", moves pretty well. You're going to see him in drop coverage here, kind of moving back. Now, guard's able to go at him. Nothing happens. Okay, and now the ball's going to reset. And so Bradshaw, great job there in that drop coverage, forcing the ball handler to pass. And now he's going to be able to rotate over, help on this drive, and go up and get the block. And he's going to have to just kind of be able to do a lot of that stuff this year. Last year, when Felix Okpara was on the floor, Ohio State was in the 97th percentile of defense. When he was off the floor, they were in the 20th percentile. What does that look like this year? Can Aaron Bradshaw kind of replicate what Felix Okpara was able to mean to this defense? Okpara here, switched against the guard, nothing happening, moving fairly well. But what he's just able to do is just help clean up everywhere around the rim. You're going to see him stationed. Now he's going to be able to rotate, come over, get the block. Kind of similar to what I showed with Bradshaw last play, but Okpara had a huge impact, and it's going to be a big hole for Ohio State to fill. They have dudes that can do it. It's just whether it's going to happen or not. Last year in general, Ohio State did a pretty good job. They forced a lot of pull-ups instead of kind of catch and shoot open looks from 3 or just forcing pull-ups from 2. We're going to go through an example right here. I think that's going to be a similar thing of what they're going to try to do again. So nothing really going on. High pick and roll. Mahaffey does an okay job getting through. You're going to see Gale. He's going to provide a ton of help from the corner right here. But what he's going to do right here is kind of what Ohio State wants to do. So he's going to close out hard, and just kind of try to force the drive to the pull-up. Sometimes they'll even kind of fly by and force the dribble. Now, they're going to live with that kind of pull-up instead of just like a catch-and-shoot three, which could have happened earlier, and just having the guys that are going to be able to do that. Now, in general, what does the perimeter defense look like for Ohio State? A lot of new faces. They do have some interesting defensive wings, Micah Parrish, Evan Mahaffey, even like Devon Royal. But what does it exactly look like? So here, you're going to see the drive. This is just kind of one-on-one for now. Ball's going to get swung. Going to be on Bruce Thornton right here. And I think Thornton's a solid defender. I don't think he's like a great defender. He isn't terrible. I think him taking a little bit of a jump and being able to apply more pressure on ball could be beneficial. You can see here, he gets caught way behind on the screen, and he's not even close to being contesting this. But Ohio State's going to live with this pull-up. They're going to be in that drop coverage. So they're living with the shots, and they're going to good result for them. But just in general, can the guards apply a little bit more pressure this year? An X factor defensively is going to be Sean Stewart, the transfer from Duke. What can he do? He had a really high block rate, a really high steal rate in limited minutes for Duke, but he's kind of this 6'9", moves crazy well, super athletic, forward, big, wing, hybrid that can maybe do a lot defensively. And Ohio State might need to rely on him. If him and Bradshaw can hit defensively, it's going to cover a lot of holes. This is going to be him up here. On ball, moving very well, and you're going to see just quick hands, able to help force the deflection and steal there. But he can also be a guy that can play near the rim, help protect there, especially as like a secondary rim protector guy. So his development and inclusion defensively is going to be big. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe and click here for even more Ohio State preview content.